Welcome to the Environmental Justice in the Chesapeake Bay Watershed Learning Lab. I am Kolya Braun-Greiner, and I am the program coordinator with IPC, Interfaith Partners for the Chesapeake. And I'm accompanied by my colleague, Anna Wimbo, Director of Leadership Development. This webinar is structured to accompany our trainings, which are the Faithful Green Leader trainings. And it's continuing education, and we have topics every month. And we will be addressing environmental justice, but all of our webinars are recorded and will be posted on our website. I'll begin again. As we breathe the very air which sustains us, O Creator of the universe, we remember your love, which gives us life. Fill us with your compassion for creation, empty us of apathy, selfishness, and fear, and of all pessimism and hesitation. Breathe into us solidarity with all who suffer now and the future generations who will suffer because of our environmental irresponsibility. Move us to action to save our earth and to build a sustainable future for all life. Amen. It is my deep pleasure and privilege to be introducing Monica Brooks. We're excited and blessed to have her with us to share her wealth of organizing experience with us. Monica co-founded the Concerned Citizens Against Industrial CAFOs, that is concentrated animal feeding operations, on the Eastern Shore. Monica will shed light on the often hidden impacts of factory farming on the health of her community and other communities where CAFOs are located. Thank you, Monica, for presenting on this webinar with us. Take it away, Monica.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here and certainly a privilege to be able to speak to the faith community. I know that in the different arenas that we're in, things are not always as free. So I'm very thankful to be here. I'm Monica Brooks. I am on the Eastern Shore of Maryland, and I have become a big advocate here, primarily against big agriculture. Just to give you a little bit of background, I'm originally from California, born and raised in Southern California. And when I moved to Maryland, I was immediately struck by all the beauty of all the trees and everything. And the idea of moving to, I started off actually living in Howard County. I lived in Baltimore for a period of time, but coming to the Eastern Shore rural community, I anticipated that I would have that beautiful experience of this breathing in the air and seeing the trees and access to where my food comes from and all of that. However, I had to find out when you pull back the covers, things are not always what they seem to be. While the Eastern Shore is a beautiful place and we are, there are a lot of great people here on the shore, we have a problem. When I moved here, I found out a number of people with high rates of asthma and respiratory diseases, as well as cancer. And me coming from the city life, you would think that I would know a lot more people with that, but I didn't until I came to the Eastern Shore. And a few years ago, I found out that what's called a factory farm, for anyone who doesn't know, is a large animal feeding operation. What it does is allows someone to put several animals in one small confined space where basically they just eat. They don't get to walk around, exercise or anything. The idea is to grow them as soon as possible. You can imagine that within that confinement, that there's a lot of gases that build up and things like that. So with these animal feeding operations, they are the size of a football field. And what they'll do is put 4, 8, 10, 12. They were going to put 13 of these near my home on a small plot of land. And if that wasn't enough, that was going to be also on top of the Paleo Channel, which is our source of water for the people in Salisbury as well as
Environmental Justice, Eastern Shore, Maryland.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Monica.
Okay.
Could everyone mute themselves, please?
So the paleo, so of course, initially I thought, well, I'll just go and speak to zoning and our county council or what have you and say, hey guys, did you know this was going on? There's been a mistake. However, nobody cared. It wasn't a mistake. This was something that's being allowed. We have several large poultry companies housed on the Eastern Shore, right here, employing lots of people. But finding out that these were going to be placed right there, and that would be about 2.5 million chickens a year, including all the trucks coming up and down the highway, all the pollution and toxins, the particulate matter, all of this will be coming to our homes, into our community. Our community is 86% African American, but the county is 26% African American. I thought it not strange that this was happening in this area, and it was done literally at a time when it was the holidays, when nobody knew what was going on. There were no notices. There was very little information. So fortunately, that day I started an online petition, and this is what I want to encourage people about, is fighting for what's right. The beautiful thing about standing on the side of what's right, you have a boldness about you. And especially, as believers, for me, as a woman of God, I know that God has placed me in a position to stand for what's right, period. When I know I'm on the side of right, you can't shut me up. You cannot shut me up. I'm going to keep on keeping on. God made this earth beautiful. He gave us what we need for this earth. He gave us air to breathe. He gave us clean waters. He provided us land that we can grow our own food on. He provided us with animals, all of these things. And all he said was, take care of it. Take care of it. Take care of it. And to this day, he is saying, take care of what I have given you, what I have provided for you. And here we have allowed industry to cover or be more important, to supersede the importance of people. The importance of people and their livelihood, their health. We have the highest rates of asthma in our middle schoolers here in the whole state, right here on the Eastern Shore. We have the highest respiratory rates in the whole state, right here on the Eastern Shore. We have high rates of cancer, right here on the Eastern Shore. When I went to Annapolis, and I'll get back to the founding of our grassroots movement. When I went to Annapolis, which I've been countless times now, but when I spoke specifically to, I believe it was the Senate Committee for the Environmental Committee, they said, oh, we know about the high rates of respiratory disease there on the shore. And I said, well, what are you going to do about it? What I say is the Eastern Shore is not a science experiment. We're not a petri dish. We don't want to be discounted and treated in such a way that it doesn't matter what happens. People have gotten so used to asthma and respiratory problems here. They see it as normal. When these houses that are for the poultry houses, the ammonia that comes out of them is blinding. Ammonia, I learned, is a sticky gas. It sticks to whatever it touches. So that's breathing into our lungs, being stuck into our lungs. So we ended up, me and some neighbors and other people that I met, we ended up forming Concerned Citizens Against Industrial CAFOs. We formed this group because we were not able to receive the advocacy from our elected officials that we thought we should get. We weren't able to receive the support, the encouragement. As a matter of fact, we were dismissed. We were ridiculed. Some of our members were attacked, literally, threatened, assaulted, lost jobs, you name it, it's happened. But as I said, when you're fighting for what's right, there are sacrifices that are made. And unfortunately, so many people here are still making sacrifices for their health. We are fighting so that the people here on the shore don't have to make a choice between choosing to work in an industry like the poultry industry or big agriculture and their health. We don't want them to have to choose between protecting my family and them not having to use inhalers or keep EpiPens and all of that and keeping my job. So many people are in precarious positions. Our immigrant workers, their advocacy group is called CAFOs. That immigrant worker population went through such an enormous strain, especially during COVID, as they were not allowed to separate, they were not given proper PPE, and they were not in any position to not go to work because they need the money. And they can't speak up because you speak up and then you lose your job. You lose your job, then they just replace you with someone, and you're just a cog in the wheel. So when we talk about environmental justice, it's really just the same, to me, it's the same thing when I think about what the words of Martin Luther King, when he talks about everyone having, well, he didn't specifically say equity, we talk about equity now, but about there being fairness and justice for everyone. Everyone deserves to have clean air, clean water, deserves to be able to walk about freely, and deserves to be able to say, hey, there's a problem here. There are some pollutants, or there are things going on that are causing contamination. Can we look into this and not be fearful of the consequences? Many people in this rural community grew up here, and so they know a lot of the people in positions of leadership and power, and they don't speak up because, well, my cousin's married to this person. Oh, my so-and-so, my uncle works in this industry. If you are causing harm, you should be held accountable, period. I don't care how much money you bring in. I don't care how many jobs you do. Why can't we have an industry that is accountable to all and also providing a service?
Well,
I don't believe that we should just say, turn a blind eye because of the number of jobs. Our governor, and yes, I'm saying it, our governor said to me, why do you want to mess with this industry? They are the backbone of our agriculture in this state, and they produce a lot of jobs. I said, so my response was, guess what, Governor Hogan? I said, guess what? It's not going to matter how many jobs that they produce if there's nobody to take the jobs and everybody's dead. I said, so if you just want a whole town full of chickens, then go ahead. You can have chickens and no people.
I want to ask you, Monica, at this juncture, thank you. Amen to that. And if you were just put into one or two sentences, how did you succeed in having that particular plant that was sited near your home revoked?
Thank you. Thank you.
We just have another minute here for you.
Yes, I was looking at the time. I'm like, oh, am I 1 minute or two? I should have put my readers on.
Yeah, that's okay. Go ahead.
So really quickly, I believe that this fight has to have a multi-pronged approach. To utilize the gifts and talents within your group. We have people that are speakers. We have people that are behind the scenes. We have people that write letters. We have people that do various different things, people that protest, people that gather data. And we utilize those different ones in different areas. And we fought and fought and fought from the council level all the way up to the state level, all the way from the industry itself. And we called out everything that was wrong. We wrote letters. We had petitions. We did everything. We brought in elderly. We brought in gay, lesbian, straight, everybody and their mama, as we would say, came in, and we consistently, over almost 3 years, fought, and we won. This would have been the largest siting project of large animal feeding operation in the whole state. And because people came together and supported each other, we came together and change happened. And so I'm very proud of our community.
Well, thank you so much, Monica. That is truly a testimony to persistence and courage and organizing in a way that involves the whole community. And I know folks will probably have questions of you at the end, so I'm glad that you're staying on with us to carry on through this webinar. Do we have Laura Kigweba James with us? I'm checking to see if our next speaker is on.
I'm here.
Oh, hallelujah. There you are.
Good to see you. Good to see you.
Great.
Good to see
Well,
you, Monica. Yeah.
Hey, Laura.
Hi.
I'm going to introduce you if you don't mind, and then you can take it away.
Yeah, and Kalia, if you
Yes.
could pin her,
Yes.
or make somebody else a co-host, that would be great.
Yeah. I can pin her right now. Okay. Okay. Is she pinned now? Should be. Make sure. There you
I
go.
am not pinned. I don't
There you
know.
go.
Yeah, it just had a little bit of a delay.
Okay.
All right.
Well, we can see, yeah. We see you, Kalia, now.
I've got Monica pinned.
Okay.
All right, I'll carry on. Well, it's my pleasure to introduce Laura Kigweba James, Program Coordinator for Grassroots Organizing at the General Board of Church and Society of the United Methodist Church. And in her position, she's committed to equipping United Methodists to build power to transform conditions of injustice in areas of climate and health. Take it away, Laura. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Did someone have the slides that I made, or do I? Awesome. Cool. Great. Well, let's get started. So thank you, Monica, for your experience, your truth, your commitment to the work of climate and environmental justice for your community, our world, and the future. I'm just deeply grateful for advocates like yourself and the legacies of justice that you're building. So thank you so much. And much gratitude to Kolya and the Interfaith Chesapeake broader network. It's a great opportunity to be with you all this evening. And also with all the United Methodists. Cynthia Taylor, I see you on the call. You are an incredible environmental justice advocate in the Baltimore, Washington Conference. So grateful for you. And to the Gwen Oak United Methodist Church, Reverend Del Hinton, you also introduced me to climate justice work when I was first getting started in ministry. And so I acknowledge the gratitude because I wouldn't be where I am today without all of you. So thank you. Thank you. So if we can actually go to the church and society slide, it should be actually, yeah, it's fine.
Okay,
That's
fine.
fine.
Yeah.
Thank you. So again, my name is Laura Kigweba James. I serve as the program coordinator for Grassroots Organizing at the General Board of Church and Society of the United Methodist Church. So our organization is one of 13 agencies in the United Methodist Church. We are tasked with equipping the church to live out our faith through our social teachings and witness that are outlined in our denomination's social principles, resolutions, and other policy statements of our church, just to give you some background. So our specific work at Church and Society is spread across 33 different issues, right? I work in the Department of Advocacy and Organizing, where those issues are divided into 5 priorities of climate, health, immigration, peace, and poverty. My specific area of focus are health, and I partner with my colleague, John Hill, who is the Deputy General Secretary of Advocacy and Grassroots Organizing and the Director of Economic and Environmental Justice at Church and Society on climate. So next slide. Awesome. So as United Methodist, we engage in the broad areas of climate and environmental justice, such as food justice, clean water, sustainability, but all of our advocacy is deeply informed through the lens of environmental justice. We can go to the next slide and the next slide. Okay. Awesome. So the father of environmental justice and author of the first book documenting environmental injustice in the US, which is called Dumping in Dixie, Race, Class, and Environmental Quality, Dr. Robert Bullard defines environmental justice, also shorthand as EJ, as embracing the principle that all people, right? All people and communities have a right to equal protection and equal enforcement of environmental laws and regulations, right? So Monica, in hearing your testimony, right, why is it that Governor Hogan asked you, why are you taking up one of the giants, right? Because you know that our communities, your communities matter and are deserving of equal protection and a regulation of the environment when it comes to environmental justice. So just knowing that environmental justice, one of the grounding understandings is that all people and communities have the right to equal protection and equal enforcement in the law and environmental laws and regulations. So we can go kind of up to back to the first slide, actually, with the caring for creation. Awesome, thanks so much. So in the United Methodist Church, we have our resolutions, which are commitments that we resolve to live out. And this specific resolution, 1033, Caring for Creation, a call to stewardship, really is guided by the definition and understanding that Bullard really named and defined when he claimed the term environmental justice. And so just a few points that I want to bring out from this statement, because it is a long paragraph, but here as a church, we are committed, right, to asking for God's forgiveness for the ways that we have perpetuated climate injustice, right? And we are committing ourselves to a new way of being that integrates environmental, economic, and social justice. And we also recognize that we're called to participate in God's healing of creation through the acts of personal, social, and civic righteousness. And we're also committed to proclaiming and modeling this new lifestyle that's rooted in the stewardship of justice. So these understandings and this vision of justice, if it wasn't for Dr. Bullard, if it wasn't for the environmental justice movement, right, we wouldn't have this vision. So I just want to name that and make those two connections. So this beautiful melanated baby is myself. And just a little bit about my story and how I got into the work. Oh, we can go to the next slide. Sorry, okay. You're probably like, where's the beautiful melanated child? Next slide after that.
Okay.
After that. Yeah. Oh no, it's not coming up. Oh no. Okay. I don't know where it is. Well, y'all can't see me, but I can see me. So that is fine. So I grew up in a small town, Roseville, Minnesota, and my dad was a chemist. And we actually ended up moving away from Roseville because as a chemist, he discovered that in the local National Armory that was close by, there were pollutants. And if it wasn't for his research, if it wasn't for his intellect, if it wasn't for his care for myself, as well as my older brother, we wouldn't have been able to move from the neighborhood. And and so very at an early age, I was exposed to the environmental injustices as a young Black girl living in the US and the reality of environmental injustice through the research done by Dr. Bullard and many other incredible environmental justice leaders is that 90% of the time, environmental factors impact communities of color. This is an EJ screen. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. This came out in 2015 from the EPA that highlights environmental injustices. I'm going to drop this in the chat across the US. And what's circled in the red is my hometown of Roseville, Minnesota. And I don't know if you all can see, but the little dots identify different hazards, right? So you have, and one of the dots closest to Roseville, Minnesota is one of air pollution, as well as hazardous fumes, right? And so those are some that my dad identified. And a lot of this research dates back to the 1990s, and we left in 1992. So just having this relationship of understanding both data and experience to recognize that we have not just a problem, but a systemic problem that is directly related to the foundations of racism that have unfortunately shaped the history of this country and need to be named and pulled away.
Mhm.
So if we can go to the next slide. Awesome. So just kind of going back to this point of, so then if we know this based on the research, right, if we know the realities of environmental injustice, if we can see them, if we've experienced them, like Monica, that you shared what's happening in the Eastern Shore, as communities of faith, like what is the new way of being that I read in that resolution? What is a new way of being that we are committed to? And for me, I deeply appreciate the work of Dr. Melanie Harris and many other eco-womanists that provide this perspective of, in our ecological history as Black people, in our ecological experience as Black women, there is a new way of understanding how to live a new reality, to live a just reality. So eco-womanism is this critical reflection, contemplation, and praxis-oriented study of environmental justice, and deeply informs the work that I do, yes, at church and society, but also in my community, of really being able to tap into, as Reverend Dr. Harris kind of refers to it as, what is the eco memory in our heritage that informs how we advocate for justice. And another part of my story is I'm a first generation Burundian American. My ancestors were farmers. We still own the land on the hill of Zege in Burundi, Africa. And that just deeply informs how I show up in the work of climate justice advocacy. So just wanted to share that. We can go to the next slide. So I have 3 minutes, I believe, not enough time to get through this incredible timeline of environmental justice, but I did want to just highlight a couple of just important pieces that you may or may not know. And please know that this is not the breadth of the history of environmental justice. I really just wanted to put together what it has looked like for Black, Indigenous, Brown communities of color to build power through the political climate, right? So we do have the civil rights movement from 1968, where MLK, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., was on the scene and an advocate against the inhumane conditions of sanitation workers. And then what deeply informed that was a decision in 1979, Bean versus the Southwestern Waste Management Corporation in Houston, Texas. And why that ruling in 1979 is so important was because it was the first lawsuit that used the civil rights legislation that King and many others advocated for to then stop a landfill, right? And I think one important piece that we cannot forget is that the relationship between civil rights in the US and environmental justice is not separate. So just to kind of, and that's kind of the breadth of, as you continue to look through the rest of this timeline, is it's constantly in relationship to the civil rights movement. It's definitely not two separate things. And then I do wanna, can we go to the next slide since we don't have time to go through that? So this is from Reverend Dr. James Cone, the father of liberation theology. And I guess we can probably just end with this for the sake of time, because I think this is something that, this is a quote that we can't lose sight of and need to commit to. So Reverend Dr. James Cone says, people who fight against white racism but fail to connect it to the degradation of the earth are anti-ecological, whether they know it or not. And people who struggle against environmental degradation but do not incorporate it into the disciplined, sustained fight against white supremacy are racist, whether they acknowledge it or not. The fight of justice cannot be segregated, but must be integrated with the fight for life in all of its forms. And I brought this quote because, you know, there's so much happening right now in our world, from the global pandemic to, you know, the recent decision of Derek Chauvin to the ecological crisis, environmental crisis. And it's important for us as communities of faith to not segregate these injustices, but to understand our role in addressing them, because it will take each of us to address the climate crisis, and we have to just start where we're called. So I will end my time there, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Laura. I really appreciate you, both the content and you speeding through your slides. But the way that you've connected this very important environmental justice work as being an essential expression of our faith is so key to this work. And thank you for all the great work the United Methodist Church is doing to promote solidarity with communities who are so hard hit by environmental justices. So I'm going to advance through the next few slides here so we can get to our next part of the program. So I wanted to share with you a program that we here at IPC promoted, and that was an environmental justice film series honoring Martin Luther King Celebration Day back in January. And we had several films that were hosted by various congregations. And I wanted to invite my colleague Bonnie Sorak to share about the film Unbreathable. And then we'll hear a few words from a Green Team leader that talk about another film that was part of this series to really bring awareness to environmental justice. Take it away, Bonnie.
Thanks, Kolya. And thank you for everyone coming tonight. So I don't know if you want to pin me, because I don't know if you're.
Yeah, I will do that. Here we go.
But I'll still talk. So I think our environmental justice film series kicked off on Martin Luther King holiday this past year with our showing of the movie Unbreathable, which had 3 very poignant stories about Black and Brown communities that were suffering from air pollution. And the last vignette focused on very close to home in Baltimore in the Curtis Bay community that was fighting against an incinerator that was that's in their community. What I want to point out is the power of the One Water Partnership in the pulling of this event together. Ultimately, the series had 3 films, and we worked with up to 8 congregations that helped us to promote the program. And overall, we had over 280 people registered for these events and participated in the film series. So the power of congregations working together and highlighting environmental justice was really very important. And some of those people are on this call tonight. So shout out to all of you, and thank you for your participation in that.
Thank you, Bonnie. I'm going to move on to the next film example, and that was From the Ashes, which was hosted by Congregation Bet Aviv Synagogue, and you'll see the other co-sponsors there. Because Shel Ginsberg, the Green Team leader, wasn't available, we conducted a recorded interview with her, and so she'll be sharing a few words in the next slide. Here we go.
Okay. As part of the Environmental Justice Film Series IPC sponsored, we chose the film From the Ashes, a story about the coal mining energy industry and its impact on communities. We chose the film because of its connection to the Community Coal Transition Bill. And we'd heard from both Sierra Club and Chesapeake Climate Action Network that they were prioritizing that bill in Maryland. I actually watched it on a streaming service. It was available on a couple of streaming services, and it was also available on the National Geographic as a free link from the National Geographic. It's a good idea to watch it on the link that most people will use, because I found out that the National Geographic link wasn't quite as optimal. The film spoke about the necessity of getting away from coal, and it focused on a young couple struggling with the boom-bust cycle of coal employment. It was very comprehensive and included a lot of perspectives, how coal's extracted and how it's shipped. The film generated a good group discussion about community solar and individual things that people could do to reduce dependence on fossil fuels. The panel presentation on Zoom included two wonderful speakers, David Smedek from the Sierra Club and Jamie DeMarco from Chesapeake Climate Action Network. And I had asked them to be complimentary, one to speak about the impact on the community and the other more about coal extraction, the technology and alternatives. And they, okay.
So, oops,
As
sorry,
part of the
sorry,
environmental-
sorry. Stop that. Moving on to the next thing. Cheryl had shared that it was really important to promote the film widely, and so there was broad participation, and it was a really great example of collaboration between many congregations, as Bonnie shared earlier. The next speaker, I'm delighted to introduce Wendy Howard, who is the Executive Director of One Montgomery Green. And she is also an organizer on making folks aware that Montgomery County is a visibly green, sustainable community. And in 2020, Wendy was certified as a climate change professional by the Association of Climate Change Officers in the state of Maryland. We welcome you, Wendy, and go ahead and share with us, well, all the good work you're doing. Just a few minutes.
I love it. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I am so pleased to be on this panel with Monica and Laura. First off, powerful, but what both you were talking about, I just think is so important. So as has been said, I am the Executive Director of One Montgomery Green. We are a nonprofit, and you can go to the, yeah, oh, beautiful, thank you. I can't see both. I want to be able to see my screen as well. There we go. So we are a nonprofit here in Montgomery County, focused on promoting education and outreach, promoting sustainable communities with a visibly green, healthy environmental footprint. And we do this through a number of different actions. We try and be, as we said, a model. We educate citizens and businesses on being green. We've held workshops on greening your restaurant, greening your home, greening your business. We participate in cleanups with a lot of our local watershed groups for native plantings, invasive removals, as well as participating in a lot of the environmental outreach activities that go on throughout the county. What's most important for me, you can go to the next slide, are two programs that I think are really sort of address the issues that we're talking about. The first one looks at plastic. This program is called Clean Headwaters in Search of Plastics. The idea here is over a 6-session program, Montgomery County public students, not actually all public school students, but basically any Montgomery County student, and that's thanks to COVID this past year, we were able to open it up, but they go out and do hands-on community science to determine the extent of plastic pollution in, it says 2 of the Montgomery County streams. With this past cohort that went through, we went through 6 streams. We were able to open it up county as well as down county. The question was, is there plastic pollution in the stream? And what they do is they actually get out with sieves into the water and actually sieve for plastic, or basically sieve the water. We take that up to our partners at Montgomery College, who will dry it and put it under a microscope. And I'm sorry to say, we found plastic. in almost, so we've done 5 of these cohorts, 2.5 years. We found plastic in every single stream. What's a good benefit is this is a really good way to engage the youth in understanding the problem, where it is. Most of them will go to a stream that's close to where they live or go to school. So they're learning the impact of plastic right there in their community. They are supposed to come out with action projects. And if you get a chance to go onto our website, onemontgomerygreen.org, under Clean Headwaters, you can see a link to some of the action projects and be amazed at what these youth are being able to accomplish and what they've noted. Every time they teach me something. The benefit, of course, is they understand stream health. We are partnering with quite a few different organizations. And as well, we include a green component. We all know that green careers are really is where we're going to be headed. If you look at Biden's green infrastructure, he's actually talking about that. So we want to get the kids who are predominantly from the Wheaton Silver Spring minority communities an option to look at what kind of careers there will be in the future. Next slide. The really big and the one that's of personal to me is this one we're doing on climate change. Both of our speakers earlier talked about what these impacts are. You can go to the next slide. I think we all know what the problem is. So we've created a pilot program that we luckily got some funding from PEPCO. And this is a climate resilience project. The idea is to create an assessment tool, but it's not your standard, the problem is here, this is your issue, you go fix it, or, you know, here's the way to do it. This program starts with us engaging key stakeholders in the particular community at the beginning. So we have focused on the Latino community for this pilot because these are our neighbors, these are people that are close to us. We brought key stakeholders from that community as we create this assessment tool. And we learned that they didn't want the tool we thought of. We were coming up with this survey that assesses their vulnerability. And they said, well, we do that all the time. We filled out 1,000 surveys. What we really want to do is address issues that are relevant to us that may or may not be related to climate change. So the questions aren't, are you susceptible? It's how do you deal with 100-degree weather? You know, what do you do with that? How are you equipped or prepared for that? The idea is that they can then, the community empowered, because they are asking questions that are important to us, will create, with our help, a response plan that includes mitigation and adaptation, so that the community is able to, on their own, become empowered to minimize the impact and recover more rapidly. So I hope I came pretty close. I think the last slide is just, you know, where you can reach out to us. I really wanted to only talk about sort of those 2 programs and how we can get involved. And I think I did it in my time, I hope.
That was excellent, Wendy. Thank you so much. And I'm guessing you've sparked a lot of interest in what you're doing. So thank you for being so succinct, and really your passion and enthusiasm for this, and really doing the grassroots work it takes to involve people. Thank you. Well, now it's time to open it up to questions, and we're delighted to have some time with our speakers. And so if you have a question, now is the time to either unmute yourself, or we'll take a look at the chat to see if anybody's typed in any questions in the chat. And let's see who would like to ask one of our speakers a question, or do we have some in the chat? Anna, do you see some?
Yeah, well, there are a couple of comments coming in the chat, but one of the questions that I know we had for Wendy, I had seen some reference to Environmental Justice Academy being planned or formed in Montgomery County region. And I'm wondering if you could speak to that at all, you know, where everything stands with that academy.
Well, thanks for asking. So it all funds out, and it's good to see you again, Anna. You were on a good panel this morning. I was really interested in what you had to say. So the county has undertaken a climate action plan And one of the outreach resolutions or ideas with this plan was there was a need to get the information to the right communities. And they created this summer, or excuse me, this past summer, was some ambassadors to go out and ask the community about different issues with regard to climate injustice versus climate, environmental justice. And the idea was to create this climate academy. So this is something that the county is doing with the Department of Environmental Protection. It will be for more than youth, but it is aimed primarily at youth to get involved. I did ask Adam Ortiz, the director, if he had any more input, because the hope was that this would start this summer. And there will be information on the DEP site. If you want to go Montgomery County, md.gov. And I believe it is Department of Environmental Protection will actually have more information on it. So it's in the works. It does plan to happen. It's going to be a great opportunity for people to understand what the issues are and how we can address it as a community.
Thank you. I see another question here for Monica from Diane Ray. Monica, what's the most important piece of advice you'd give a person or a small group seeking to make rightful change?
Well, just really quickly, the first thing I would say is just know that you're not alone. When you start, it seems you're the only one, but you're not. Don't be afraid. Fear will come and you will try to overwhelm you, but don't be afraid. I would say stay the course and look for allies and utilize the gifts and talents within your group so that everyone is operating at their best. Those are the first things I will give you. And lastly, remember that your elected officials work for you.
Thank you, Monica. I see Charlie Conklin has a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, I do. I'm so impressed. I'll tell you, when I went through, an hour for this or almost, and it'll build my hope, really. I want to compliment every one of you who made the presentation and everything. It's wonderful. And my question is, are people aware of the Maryland campaign for environmental union rights?
Mm. Well,
Yeah.
something for us to learn about.
Well, and IPC is also a community partner, right? So it's something that Rabbi Nina Beth Carden plus many others have put forth, and there are two bills in Maryland, the General Assembly, the House and one in the Senate, that says that everybody, as you started out, everybody is entitled to clean air, clean water.
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
Yes,
Okay.
the environmental human rights law. Yes, legislation.
Yes.
Exactly. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
And yeah, the more that you all, and if you're not already, please look that up and become a community partner. And I'm really impressed. They got about almost 100 people, but in any event, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Charlie, for bringing that to our attention.
Yeah.
It will be
Kalia, maybe we can see, if you stop sharing your screen, we can see everybody else and
Oh,
folks can
sure,
just jump
sure.
in.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Sorry about that.
Want to see everybody else?
Do you see everybody else now? You should.
Not yet.
Sometimes there's a little bit of a delay.
Yeah, there might be a bit of a delay.
While we're waiting for this, let me
Yeah,
just say
there you
this
go.
also. Let me tell you, the future of our Mother Earth is the people I'm looking at, and it's women. And thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks again, Charlie. Any other questions or comments?
There was a question from Rose Schneider. Maybe Anna can read it off.
Let's see here. Looking to see. Oh, I see it. How widespread is the involvement of congregations, populations, or is it a small group of motivated members? I would ask put this question back to Rose, the involvement in environmental justice or in environmental stewardship broadly. Certainly people of faith have been involved with environmental justice going way back to in the 70s. The United Church of Christ conducted a study and they produced a report called Toxic Wastes and Race, which showed, I think it was 78, it showed that high concentrations of toxic wastes were more prevalent in communities of color. And the people of faith have been involved in that for many decades and continue to be. Is there a follow-up comment you had, Rose?
Yeah. People of faith have been involved. What percent of people of faith do you think are involved in any meaningful way?
Oh, goodness, that's a great question. I don't know if anybody has tallied that or if it's even possible to document.
No, but is there a sense that there's a small group, like a small committee of people that are moving something forward, and you get the sense of a great bit of activity where 95% of the congregation are sitting in the pews nodding but not taking action?
Well, it varies from congregation to congregation. I mean, some are wholeheartedly behind this and they've signed the congregation partner pledge that we have, which is a pledge to care for creation. Others are just beginning, so they're all along the spectrum. And ask anyone else, one of my colleagues, if they'd have another answer or additional
Yeah,
comment.
Koya, I'll jump in. And I guess this goes back to my point that there's not a separation of, civil rights and environmental justice issues. And I think if you go to the timeline that I was sharing back in specifically 1982 with the Warren County protest, it was Black women, Black church women who laid their lives down on the ground to stop trucks from dumping polluted just trash into their neighborhood to create a landfill. And so the Black church, people of faith, have been in the work of environmental justice since day one. And it hasn't, and so, and I specifically say the Black church because since 90% of environmental hazards and injustice happen in communities of color, there is not an option to engage. You have to engage because your family and your community is at risk of harm. And so it's definitely not, there's no choice. And so if you're looking for the data, of course, I would go to the study from 1987, and then as well as in 2007, Toxic Waste and Races at 20, a 20-year overview that spans 1987 to 2007 of when communities were involved. But I mean, it's been, when it comes to the Black church, there's never an option.
Yeah, thank you, Laura. Is there other questions or comments that folks have?
There was another question. I'll just jump in here.
Sure.
I think it was Michael Hawk was asking about other movies that are available.
Oh, yeah.
I just wanted to point you to IPC's website on our resource page. We do have a suggested movie list. So I would start there. Mm-hmm. And then certainly you can reach out to the outreach coordinator in your region to help you to pick the movie. I don't know, we might have missed that part of Shell's recorded presentation, but one of the hardest parts is picking the right movie. And you might have to screen quite a few movies before you get to the movie that is going to have the messaging that you want to put across. But if you have other folks in your congregation, share the love and let them watch them and narrow down the options. And certainly we can help you do that too, as well. And I'll put that link in the chat too for our resource page.
Great. Thank you, Bonnie.
Excuse me, Kolia?
Yes, hi, Bill.
Hi. I want to make a comment. I posted a question, but didn't get brought up. But I've been involved with the environmental movement for 50 years. I was with the UCC, one of the original people to help develop the UCC's energy program back in the early 70s. And I now am a watershed steward, and I work here in Chesapeake Bay region. But I am constantly and frustrated by the fact that the environmental movement seems to not be able to get beyond a small group of dedicated people who are committed to the issue. It doesn't seem to appeal to the larger community. I had a whole career in waste recycling, and we had a pretty good success with that respect. But to the point about the corporations, once they saw the value of the recycling, they took it over, and their objective was, of course, to make a big profit, and they didn't really do it correctly. Even though it's better than it was, it isn't as good as it could be. So the point is, and the question is, how do we incentivize people to actually become involved and take responsibility for their own behavior and their own decisions regarding environmental issues, and because we're never going to solve this problem until everybody gets behind it. It's just going to be a bunch of us out here, a bunch of tree huggers and do-gooders trying to make a difference, and that's a frustrating way to go. You know, and it's not really seemed to make much progress. I mean, I have neighbors who tell me that because I'm environmental, they're not like me, you know, and I don't get that. You know, so.
Well,
Can
I think you've
comment?
touched on something about this, because I think Wendy Howard actually brought up how to engage a community that might not otherwise be engaged. And it really has to be contextual to your local environment. What do people care about? Do they care about having a clean stream where their children can play, or clean water that they can drink, or to go fishing? It looks like Rose has a comment here. No? Okay.
And I think it was Monica had something to say.
Yeah, your two speakers, Wendy and Monica, are both ready to chime in.
All right. Yeah.
Because I will think to Laura's point, and to what I've been trying to say is that we need to stop using the word climate change, and we need to talk about water. We need to talk about air. This is what's important to people. This is what they're concerned about. When we start to use these terminology that, yes, we know are important when we talk about decarbonization or all of this, it doesn't really resonate in a person who's concerned about feeding their kids, giving them, you know, a healthy environment to live in. That's what the conversation needs to be. People are going to get involved when we're talking about that. I think to Laura's point that we can't actually make the distinction between environmental justice, social justice, and it's really all the same if we're looking at it in real world terms. So, you know, that's kind of where I fall strongly on this, and why we're trying to do whatever we can to talk in relevant real world terms.
Yes.
Thanks, Wendy. Monica, did you have something to add?
I'm in full agreement. I mostly focus on saying you like clean, you know, air. You like to breathe. Do you need water to live? Yes, you do. How would you feel if there was no water available that was drinkable at all to you? That would be a problem. If you could not breathe the air at all, that would be a problem. So that's what we're doing. We're trying to get ahead of this thing so that you're never in a position where it's all gone. Because about 60% of the water now is polluted. And it's climbing. So this is what we're doing. So this is important. That's why I say it's for everyone. Everyone should be an environmentalist, because everyone wants to breathe and everyone needs water to drink that is not going to kill them. And that's just the baseline. We won't even get into broadband. We won't even get into, you know, the other, all the other injustices. But yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, I guess we're almost at time. So before Kolia, you know, closes us out, I just also wanted to acknowledge Bill. Thanks for mentioning UCC, because I remember actually the first time I learned about environmental justice issues was from Reverend Dr. Ben Chavis and the work that he was doing. So thanks for pointing that out.
Okay. Well, thank you, one and all. This has been a really fruitful and very rich conversation, and thank every one of the presenters for your experience, your expertise, and the inspiration you've given all of us. I want to close out by saying this is part of our Faithful Green Leader training. Check out our website to sign up to one of the future trainings if you haven't already be trained. And also, if your congregation has not signed our Congregation Partner Pledge, you can find that in the Get Involved area of our website. And I'm going to close out with this blessing for all of us. And do you have anything else to add, Anna, about our programs before we close?
No, take it away.
Okay. Well, we hope that this has inspired you to go forth and be engaged and care for all the world and the communities and the improvement of health for air, water, and safety for all life. Blessings of health to you and well-being to you in body and spirit to do this good work. Thanks, one and all.
Thank you.